You think it's important to know what the meaning of life is?
No, it's kind of, you're putting us on the spot. I agree. I think we evolved from apes.
I personally believe in reincarnation.
I mean, my family's religious, but I don't really know where I stand.
It's a lot to think about, you know.
In the beginning, do you believe that we've evolved, or do you believe in like a special creation? Jacob, what do you believe?
I think we've evolved.
Do you have any room for God whatsoever?
Well, you can kind of see like ape to man, so I think that. Do you know what I mean by that? Yeah, that's what I think.
So you believe apes to man. You believe primordial soup and kind of grew from there. Do you think that there's any people group that are sort of higher in that process or lower in terms of just like priority?
I don't really know about that.
That's fair. And Kaylee, what do you think? Where do we come from?
I agree. I think we evolved from apes.
Okay. Any aspect of God whatsoever?
I mean, my family's religious, but I don't really know where I stand.
It's an honest answer. So by religious, like, do they go to church and stuff?
Yes.
Do you know what type of church?
Anglican.
Anglican church. All right, you're very well studied. All right, she's very forensic. Okay, here we go. Okay, so Jacob believes in ape to man evolution. No harm in that belief, right? Well, because all beliefs have consequences, to try and help Jacob see the consequences of consistent belief in ape to man evolution, I asked him, do you think there are any people groups who are higher or lower in that process? And what's it called when we sinfully show partiality to people groups? Racism. Now, if you want or need expert Christian counsel on all topics, science and the Bible, including racism, please go to our friends and ministry partners, answersingenesis.org. Because you may not know that the complete title of Darwin's most famous work was, quote, On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. Favored races? Did it really say that? Yes, it did. And while Darwin wasn't the first sinner to suggest biological arguments for racism, his philosophies certainly fueled racism. How? Because Darwinian evolution was and is an inherently racist philosophy. It actually really truly teaches that different groups or races of people evolved at different times and rates, which is sorta what I was asking Jacob about. But let's get back to the conversation. What's the meaning of life? Why are we here? What's the point of all this?
I don't know. Can you come back to me on that one?
You can come back to you. Can I phone a friend? Okay, Kaylee, what do you think?
What do you mean by that?
What's the meaning of life? What are we living for? What's the point of all this?
You kind of choose to succeed or not, and you can kind of like put yourself out there and see how far you want to succeed. And some people don't really want to go that far, but some people, if they want, like, sky's the limit. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. So what's your target on the wall, though, Jacob? You've probably been taught simple goal setting is like knowing where you're headed, right? Then you work backwards. You breathe your last. What do you want people to say about Jacob? Jacob was what? Fill in the blank.
Whoa. I don't know. Like
speechless. Jacob was speechless. Okay. And Kaylee, what do you believe to be the meaning of life? Why are we here? Why are you at Western? Why are you studying this? Why are you walking these streets? Why are you?
I'm here to study and better myself and hopefully get a good job when I'm older.
To what end?
I don't know.
You guys got to think about this stuff, no? You think it's important to know what the meaning of life is?
I know, it's kind of, you're putting us on the spot.
Why is a powerful word. Why? Well, if you think about it, asking this one word, why, forces us all as spiritual beings to think beyond the purely material world into the immaterial of personal motivation and morality. And why is that important? It's important because why speaks to the heart. And the heart is what God sees. And the heart is what we need Him to transform in us if we're to be saved and make sense of this life. What happens after we die? Now, I think I know what you guys are going to say, but you guys have the mic. What happens next? You breathe your last. You ever had a friend die young or family member?
I have.
Yeah, me as well. What's next? What do you think?
I personally believe in reincarnation,
So second go around, third go around. Okay.
but like it's just a complete reset, but it's a lot to think about,
It is a lot to think about. And Kaylee, what do you think?
I think there's like something. I don't know what, but I don't want to believe that it just is over. I think there's something.
Do you guys make room for anything spiritual? Probably some version of an afterlife.
Yes, for sure.
Definitely.
Another dimension or something like that, for sure.
So do you guys believe that being good has any bearing on where we end up? Like, do you think Hitler gets the same as Mother Teresa?
I think
Sorry.
Well, you said that very quickly.
I think like to a certain extent, yeah. Like you like karma. You do good things, you receive good things.
Jacob,
I personally believe, yeah, like what she said.
do you guys believe you're good enough to go to heaven? Do you believe you're good enough?
So, and I believe by the end of my life I will be, for sure.
And Kaylee?
I think where I am right now, yeah, but
Could it depend on the standard? Like, what if the standard's higher, not lower? Like, what if we don't grade it on a curve? What if it's the type of thing that the standard's actually perfect?
Well, in that case, I don't know if I'm if I'm going that.
Like, who is?
yeah. I mean, like no one's perfect.
Well, that's a good point. And have you guys ever heard, I told you we're a Christian media source, have you ever heard what's called the good news? Like, actually, the hope that I have, we've come through COVID, we've come through, I know, what's this guy's persistent?
So many bees.
I know. Have you guys ever heard the good news of what's called the gospel, the Christian faith?
I've heard of it, but I don't really know. I've heard of it, but that's it.
And Kaylee?
I have not heard of it. I'm
No,
sorry.
so you've got Anglican parents, don't they ever tell you this stuff?
No, I'm like uneducated on it.
Can I share it with you?
Sure.
Okay, so this is what it is. So we have a perfectly just but loving creator God. He's created us in his image, very special. All these people are special because they're made in God's image. The problem is we've all chosen to go our own way. We've lied, we've stolen, we've done things we know we shouldn't do, but we do them anyway. And because God's good, he has to punish those things. A good judge must uphold justice. What a lot of people don't realize is the word sin is not so much a measurement of how bad you are, but how good you're not. God's the standard, and he said, be perfect. Jesus said, actually, be perfect. I'm not perfect, neither are you. So what he did is, God, in his love for us, he sends his son into this world in real-time space history. If you guys have some study space in your brain, study guys like Tacitus, Thales, Phlegon, these ancient historians that say this Jesus guy really lived. He's not a myth, he really lived. Why did he come? He was God in the flesh, the Son of God. He lives a perfect life that I couldn't live. He dies a death that I couldn't die. And then he raises from the dead 3 days later. And now he says to everyone, boy, we're getting surrounded by hornets, cameraman. He says to everyone, if you will turn from your sin and put your faith in me alone to save you, then he will remit your death sentence. He will grant you the gift of eternal life. And you're not judged in your sin anymore. God sees you the same way he sees his perfect son. The good news is we broke the law, yes. But God paid our fine in his life's blood with the death of his son. That's the good news of the gospel. And so the reason we can have hope is not because of my goodness. I don't have enough goodness. Jesus is perfect. He paid my fine for me. Have you guys heard that before?
I have not.
You've never heard that.
I feel like I have.
You feel like you have.
I feel
How long?
like
Are you guys from Canada?
Yes.
And you've never heard this message before?
I feel like I have.
I'm not religious, so I haven't really learned that much about like religion.
And that's fair. And what I've just shared with you, just so you know, though, is religion is sort of like what man does with it, what I just said. Yeah. We're talking about a relationship with the living God through his son, whereby I actually have peace. So those three questions really quick. Where do we come from? God specially created us in his image. What's the meaning of life? To bring glory to him and to have joy and peace everlasting. Where do we go when we die? We go to be with him because he's actually paid for us to do so. And that's the good news. We can have hope and we can have joy in this lifetime. What do you guys think about that?
I love it.
Thank you for educating us on this.
I want to give you guys something here. Hold on. Let me give you guys a couple of these. There's a little card in there, so you take that, each one of those, and read that later. And this is the group we're with, Go Teams Media. You guys have been super cool to talk. Seriously,
you
you're
so
very
much.
friendly folks. Where are you from originally?
Toronto.
Wow. And who said Toronto people are mean, right? I hate that. Toronto people, I've talked to a few. Toronto people are amazing. You guys are very kind. Thanks again, Jacob. Kaylee. Kaylee, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Great. Have a good day. Thank you. Jacob and Kaylee were raised right here in Canada, yet by their own admission, neither had ever really heard the good news of the Christian faith. Now, we know that only God himself can actually give us ears to hear that message to be saved. But weren't you encouraged by how open both were to listening? And Kaylee even said she hopes that there is something else after this life. So let's close this conversation talking briefly about hope. What is hope? To hope is to expect something beneficial or better in the future. Biblically, we know that all humans, Jacob and Kaylee included, are commonly created in the image of our eternal God with the same common desire for beneficial or better things in the future that none of us has experienced yet. And as God's creatures, we can only make sense of these common desires and justify anything as being beneficial or better by starting with the good and true standard of God and His Word. And ultimately, true hope only happens through true salvation. That's why the downcast psalmist, when he sees his salvation, says, hope in God. And that's also why Go Teams Media is so committed to sharing God's gospel of hope. And if you want to watch that complete and uncut conversation, just click the link in the description below. But in the meantime, to continue conversing and connecting on what matters most with us, go to goteamsmedia.com. Finally, if you're a Christian who'd like to get equipped by example for evangelism, and maybe even explore the possibility of your church launching your own Go Teams Media ministry in partnership with The Crosscurrent, go to thecrosscurrent.com to contact us. I'm Cory McKenna, the Equipping Evangelist, and you've been on the go with Go Teams Media.